You're listening to Yumi Radio. This is the Yumi Radio Morning Show. I'm DJ Kelly, and it is now time for us to give you the news roundup. And of course, we're reading from the New York Times. All the news that's fit to print. It's February 7, 2020, and thank you so much for watching or listening wherever you are, whether you're on our YouTube page, on our listening via our app on the radio, via our website, via Podbean, our social media pages. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here. We begin with the weather. So today, rain ending, cloudy, windy, near record warmth, and a high 53. Lower temperatures. Tonight will be cloudy, cold, low 26. And tomorrow, sunshine, high 37. The weather map can be seen on page B12. And on the front page, President Trump is pointing with a very stern, stoned look on his face. And there are persons, some smiling, some head down, persons clapping. The room seemed a bit somber, so they're clapping, but I'm not feeling celebration. So let's see what the subtext says. Okay, so President Trump on Thursday claimed vindication and one by one lauded the lawmakers who helped him in the impeachment case. That's the text beneath the photo. I try every morning to describe the image for those who are hearing me and who will only hear me. Yes, so instead of reconciliation, a promise of payback. That's the story immediately beneath that photo. And the story has a subtitle, Trump calls out evil and crooked rivals in rambling talk. And this story is by Peter Baker, and it's out of Washington. President Trump and his Republican allies focused on exacting payback against his political opponents on Thursday after his acquittal in his Senate impeachment trial, signaling that the conflict that has consumed Washington for months may only escalate rather than recede. Choosing retaliation over reconciliation, Mr. Trump lashed out at Democrats and the one Republican senator who voted for conviction. He turned a prayer breakfast into a launching pad for political attacks and then staged a long rambling venting session. A long rambling venting session at the White House where he denounced evil and crooked lawmakers and the top scum of the FBI for trying to take him down. Mr. Trump's team indicated that his desire to turn the tables on his foes may go beyond just tough language. The White House press secretary declared that Democrats, in quote, should pay for impeaching the president, and the Trump administration worked to facilitate a Senate Republican investigation of Hunter Biden, the son of former Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. The goal of Mr. Trump that was at the heart of his impeachment. That was chilling. That story continues on page 18. Ooh, okay. Muddled Democratic race hurtles to New Hampshire. That's the next headline. Discord deepens as near final Iowa results show Sanders Buttigieg dead heat. That story is by Jonathan Martin and Reed Epstein. Democrats fought among themselves on Thursday over the troubled Iowa caucuses, even as near final results showed Senator Bernie Sanders and Peter Buttigieg in a dead heat for the lead. The remarkable level of discord enveloping the start of the nominating process, with the New Hampshire primary only days away was an early setback for a party that was already ideologically fractured between left and center and staring at a nomination fight that may last into the summer. The head of the Democrat National Committee, Tom Perez, added to the turmoil on Thursday by first demanding a recanvass of results in Iowa. And here's a quote, "Enough is enough," he declared, before later backtracking, saying that only precincts with reported problems needed to be re-examined. The outcome of the caucuses has been mired in confusion since Monday, when Iowa officials reported trouble with new technology and inconsistencies in reporting the results. Even the 99% of the results tabulated on Thursday night, Mr. Sanders and Mr. Buttigieg were virtually locked in the race for delegates. No winner has been declared. The state party did not publicly respond to Mr. Perez's demand and said it would carry out a recanvass only if a campaign asked for one. None of the candidates have done so. Adding to the sense of alarm among Democrats was a growing rift. Mr. Sanders and the Democratic National Committee reviving memories of the acrimony that marred the party's 2016 primary. In addition to declaring he had won in Iowa following the lead of Mr. Buttigieg, who made the same claim on Monday, Mr. Sanders denounced the Iowa Democratic Party and called the National Committee's decision to change its debate rules to include Michael R. Bloomberg an absolute outrage, and an absolute outrage, in quote. "I'm sitting in the middle like a child whose parents are going through a divorce." That's how it feels, isn't it? "Wondering how do we fix this in the next few months," said Laura Hubka, the Democratic Party chairwoman in Iowa's Howard County. "I'm not sure we can." That story continues on page A15. And you can see beneath a photo where someone is literally with a pen and a paper calculating, and the text beneath that says, "Tabulating Democratic Caucus figures Monday in Des Moines." That's by hand though. Okay. In other news, headlines, New York law on immigrants spurs reprisal. This article is by Jesse McKinley, Zolan Cano-Youngs, and Annie Correal. It was a sharp and sudden escalation of tension between President Trump and his former home state. A decision by Department of Homeland Security officials to bar tens of thousands of New Yorkers from enrolling in programs that allow travelers to speed through airport lines and borders. But the jurisdiction unveiled late on Wednesday may have been even more jarring. Federal authorities suggested that the state had endangered national security with a new law allowing undocumented immigrants to obtain driver's licenses. This is unbounded arrogance, disrespect of the rule of law, hyper-political government, and this is another form of extortion, Governor Andrew M. Cuomo, a third-term Democrat, said of the move by Homeland Security. This is what Trump did with Ukraine. This is the ethos of his federal government. The conflict, which has the potential to slow the travel routines of at least 175,000 New Yorkers, stems from two vastly different approaches to immigration policy. This story continues on page A20. Another photo is on the front page, and it is with Well, let me just tell you what it says. An out of this world record. The astronaut Christina Koch landed on Thursday after 328 days in space, the most by a woman. Oh, she is happy. She's laughing while they're trying to get her out of the thing that she's in. And if you want to see the page, the front page that I'm reading from, you can go to our app and click newspapers and click on the relevant information and you'll see it. It's right there. In other stories, whistleblower on China virus succumbs to it. Oh wow. And this story is by Chris Buckley. He was the doctor who tried to sound a warning that a troubling cluster of viral infections in a Chinese province could grow out of control, and was then summoned for a middle-of-the-night reprimand over his candor. On Friday, the Dr. Li Wenliang, I'll just say Li, because I can't pronounce his name properly, died after contracting the very illness he had told medical school classmates about in an online chat room, the coronavirus. He joined the more than 600 other Chinese who have died in an outbreak that has now spread across the globe. Dr. Li had the misfortune to be infected during the fight against the novel coronavirus pneumonia epidemic, and all-out efforts to save him failed, the Wuhan City Central Hospital said to Weibo, the Chinese social media service. We express our deep regret and condolences. Even before his death, Dr. Li had become a hero to many Chinese after word of his treatment at the hands of the authorities emerged. That story continues on page A8. In other news, Beijing imposes extreme limits on ill in Wuhan. This article is by Amy Kin, Stephen Lee Myers, and Elaine Yu. The Chinese authorities resorted to increasingly extreme measures in Wuhan on Thursday to try to halt the spread of the deadly coronavirus, ordering house-to-house searches, rounding up the sick and warehousing them in enormous quarantine centers. The urgent, seemingly improvised steps came amid a worsening humanitarian crisis in Wuhan, one exacerbated by tactics that have left this city of 11 million with a death rate from the coronavirus of 4.1% as of Thursday, staggeringly higher than the rest of the country's rate of 0.17%. With the sick being herded into makeshift quarantine camps with minimal medical care, a growing sense of abandonment and fear has taken hold in Wuhan, fueling the sense that the city and the surrounding province of Hubei are being sacrificed for the greater good of China. That story continues on page A8. There's another story on the front page. The headline reads, Insurance Squabbling Stymies Rebuilding Efforts in Puerto Rico. And this story is by Francis Robles and Patricia Mazai. When the ground shakes in Puerto Rico and it is time to head for higher ground, the people in the northwestern coastal city of Aguadilla find out the old way, the shrill of whistles. Aguadilla, or Dia, but I don't want to try the Spanish, so I'll just say the best way I know how. Aguadilla is one of the 24 cities on the island that do not have emergency alert sirens, even as hundreds of earthquakes have rattled Puerto Rico for weeks. The sirens were destroyed during Hurricane Maria in 2017, and insurers still have not paid long pending claims that would allow the cities to install new warning equipment. I've seen people in town with a whistle hanging around their necks, said Carlos Mendez Martinez, who retired as mayor last month after almost 25 years of running the city. There's a second headline that says estimated 1.6 billion in unresolved claims. Wow. More than 2 years after Hurricane Maria descended, destroying power poles, public buildings, homes, roads, and other infrastructure from one end of the island to the other, an estimated 1.6 billion in insurance claims, particularly high dollar claims filed by cities and condominium associations remain unresolved. Emergency facilities, hospitals, stadiums, basketball courts, convention centers, and other government properties around the island are still in shambles, waiting for repair because private insurers have not paid claims. That story continues on page A21. In other headlines, in international headlines, there's a photo there of an area of land. It looks like in the forest, and there's a fireman with a hose, and it's just dark, except for his orange clothing. The rest of the place is burnt. So the first headline says, the trouble with more trees. Forests absorb carbon dioxide, but are also vulnerable to fires in a changing climate, as Europe is learning. Page A6. Ireland's leader faces voters. A gay and multiracial prime minister made history, but is seen as a status quo figure in a coming election. Page A4. In national headlines, protection ends for Utah land. Mining and drilling will be allowed on land that had been part of a major national monument. Page A20. Clash over helicopter safety. Tensions existed over safety at the company that flew the aircraft in the crash that killed Kobe Bryant. Page 21, A21. And in New York, headlines for New York, reversal in fortune. Renters are jubilant, but the elimination of real estate fees could have dire reverberations for 25,000 brokers. Page 822. Witnesses named stayed secret. A witness was killed, and a Long Island police chief blamed a new law, but documents show otherwise. Page 824. In business headlines, Trump's John Hancock authenticators believe an impeachment report signed by President Trump is real and could fetch 6 figures. Page B4. No help for a crash inquiry. Boeing and U.S. officials won't cooperate with a Dutch review of a fatal 2009 jet accident near Amsterdam. Page B1. In sports, sale of Mets may be off after months of negotiations. A deal for the Mets to sell control of the team to the hedge fund billionaire Steve Cohen is in jeopardy. Page B8. And Weekend Arts, an island of erotic forms. The beguiling shapes in Zelia Sanchez's New York retrospective are filled with allusions to women's bodies. That continues on page C16, and I believe that brings to the end. Brings us to an end of the news highlights for today. And of course, we say thank you to the New York Times. We're using their front page for the news roundup.